Hello and welcome to Her Matters. I am your host. My name is Chioma Omero.
Culture of silence. Again, silence, because if you even try to say, oh, he did this to me, she did this to me, people then say, where's your proof? Are you sure?
Now, what I've seen is parents are not talking to their daughters and their sons. They are not talking to them. So when
people now think that if someone in the medical profession or in healthcare or in that field carries out the process, it would be safer.
The other part of it is the way we structured our healthcare system to actually selectively, remove these paid medicine vendors out of the entire health loop. We don't officially recognize them, but there's a significant role they have to play.
Hello and welcome to Her Matters. I am your host. My name is Chioma Omero. Her Matters is a talk show series that focuses on pressing issues that are affecting women across the world. On today's show, we're talking bodily autonomy. Joining me to discuss this is the digital creator and activist Leema Mason, of course, and we also have Itunu Ashade, who is a sexual and reproductive health expert. So welcome, Leema Mason and Itunu Ashade. Welcome to Her Matters. So you were discussing about women's health, any of the issues that involve women at all, and for the well-being of women. So we're going to talk about stuff in the digital space. Of course, Leema, this is you. And we're going to talk about stuff in the sexual health and reproductive space, which Itunu, you will help us when we get to those kind of questions. Now, I know that in recent years, there has been a lot of talk about bodily autonomy. And I think it has to do with just being in control of what we do with our bodies or what we are allowed to do. I say allowed to do with our bodies. And there are, of course, different interpretations of this concept, which, of course, saying the same thing, which is that everybody has a right to do what they want with their bodies, right? So I just wanted you guys to, so I think we'll start, because this is, of course, this internet matter and social media and everything else is a major part of what people are seeing and doing, especially the younger ones, the youth. So Leema, I'll start with you. So just...
I just want to say thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome.
To be here.
Very welcome.
So when it comes to bodily autonomy, I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head. It is, about you being in control of what happens to your body, you having the final say when it comes to your body. Like you see all of those hashtags or those taglines, it's my body, my choice, my body, my rights. That's basically what bodily autonomy is. It's when I talk about liberation, I always say liberation is your right to choose, and obviously you cannot choose if you don't have the facts. Right. So when it comes to bodily autonomy, it's simple. It's like anything that happens to my body, I get to decide, because it's my body. It's not some old white man somewhere. It's not some man. It's not anyone. It's not my husband. Right. It is me. This is my body. This is my womb. These are my organs. I get to choose what I want. I get to choose what I don't want. That's just it in short form, basically.
Thank you so much. I know that also, of course, when it comes to we can say it's our right, but they're also health. Like when we talk about sexual and reproductive health, that has a lot to do with women and the issues that we encounter when it comes to these things, and sometimes not having power over our bodies is what leads us to these spaces or places where we now end up having to deal with not very healthy sexual and reproductive parts. So can you just say a bit about that?
Yeah, basically most times it goes beyond it's even just leading to a place where you don't want to be or where it's not so healthy for you. So we've had cases of, say, a husband that his wife just put to bed and he says, oh, she has given birth to so many children, just die at tubes. She's not necessarily in harm's way, but she should be able to decide if she still wants more children or not. So basically it just means that your ability to decide what you want to do, just like I said, you can choose if you want to have children, when you want to have them, if you no longer want to have them. You can wake up tomorrow and say, I want more, so pretty much means that even if it doesn't put you in harm's way, as long as it's a decision. We've had cases of, the husband is not around and the husband has to sign for her to be able to carry out this procedure, and then the woman dies in the process. So basically it just means that the woman should decide, whoever, the man if he wants to, if he has to, and then if the woman wants to, she should be able to as well.
But we hear that every citizen is property of the state. Mm-hmm. So how does that affect
So in
Bodily autonomy
medicine,
and, like-
in medicine, there's a concept called consent. So
Okay.
before you can do anything with patients, you have to get the patient's consent. And what medicine says is get the patient's consent. But we have some men, some elders who think, oh, because this issue may affect the family, we shouldn't just get her consent, we should get her husband's consent. And in some cases, even if she doesn't consent to it, as long as the husband consents to it, then one could go. And these are the issues. And when you hear men say, oh, what are you even fighting about? There's no problem when it comes to feminism. You don't know the deeper issues that are beyond things like, oh, she wasn't given the job because she was pregnant. There are deeper issues beyond that sometimes.
There are indeed. Now I want to get I'm gonna of course go back to Leema, because we talk about rape, the issue of rape in this country with regards to just the law and the concern about the level of the rise of rape cases in Nigeria. It's almost like when you look at the Constitution, the laws are not necessarily they're not straightforward. They seem so vague and just so almost like broad when it comes to this. And it's, first of all, you wonder that, wow, how are we still here in this place? The issue of spousal rape, for example, the Nigerian Criminal Code in section 357 is silent on rape in marriage.
Absolutely.
But section 282 of the Penal Code pretty much says that rape is not recognized in marriage in Nigeria. Section 258 of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, VAP, of 2015 tries to clear up the ambiguity by stating that rape occurs if one party does not grant consent. But then, not the whole country have adopted the VAPP. So I think we'll go here. Leema, we'll start with you.
Okay, so this kind of ties into the question that you initially asked us about, people's bodies being the property of the state. What I'll quickly add to that is that the short and plain of it is the law is an ass. And regardless of what the law says, a lot of times it's like, okay, this is what the law, how many of us know what the law says? When it comes to, if something happens to you in your body, you're not going to think, does the government say this is okay? If, God forbid, I get pregnant today, I'm not going to say, does Buhari think I can do what I want to do with that situation?
Right.
So so in these cases, thankfully, yes, there's the VAP Act. I think that policy work and advocacy is something that needs to be buttressed in terms of getting the laws out there. So people need to know that, okay, it's not just saying, because a lot of people don't believe in marital rape. There are many men that tell you, oh, they cannot rape their wives. They will tell you, even when men think, oh, sex is something I owe my husband, once he have dropped yam and dowry or whatever. It's like, some influencers, let me not call their names, saying, don't use sex to control your husband. It's like, I don't owe you sex at any point in time. If I'm not consenting, I tell people, when it comes to sex, there must always be consent. Even if your husband or your partner is on his last pump, he's about to orgasm, and I'm like, I'm done. Let's calm down. Get off me at that point in time. And this is why we say bodily autonomy. You have to understand that you have the right, when it comes to anything that's happening to your body. I choose first. I choose to say this can work and this cannot work. For these kind of things, we just need more awareness to go to the villages, to go to even in churches, because this is where our problem in this country, a lot of it is patriarchy and purity culture. Purity culture is at the depth of most of our problems. And so we actually need to take this advocacy work to the church. That's why we like social media. We're telling the younger ones, we're going on TikTok, we're telling Gen Zs that you get the right to choose. I don't care what any old man says, because you can make those laws, but at the end of the day, we know that everybody's going to find their way. So we also need the policymakers to put pressure on the government as well, because when the government is on your side, then there is more safety. You want to avoid people going through the
right.
No matter what you say, it's not going to change anything. So it's like a holistic method of attacking things. We go online, do the advocacy, the policy, because even the health workers, because you have judgmental health workers.
Right.
As well.
Yes.
So we need to attack from all sides.
As I'm sure, you're one of the. Are you one of those judgmental health workers?
Are you judgmental? As a sexual and reproductive health professional, you can't afford to be judgmental. actually. So because you understand that
You will
in
be
the end,
surprised.
well, those that are really, most of those judgmental ones are not really trained. They are mostly just, civil servants.
Okay.
But those that have the skills, that
Right.
are trained, understand that in the end,
They
it's
are
not
trained
about,
not to be judgmental. Right.
you can have your own opinions, you can have your religious beliefs, you can have your moral stance,
Right.
but you can't, you can't
impose it
push
on
that.
anybody else.
Thank you, that's
right.
the word. You can't
I think that's the
impose
whole
it on
point of
anyone.
that whole
And that's the
power of
point,
choice and freedom of choice.
Because in the
Yeah.
end, those are your opinions,
Right.
they are your standards, they are not absolute.
Right.
And I think that the issue of spousal rape not being, constitutional up till now still comes down to the fact that, the marital bond is believed that at the point where you sign that marriage certificate or you drop the yam, like she said, you believe that you've signed your rights over. And so they feel like the consent that you are giving consent on that day, and that consent is absolute. But we know that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And so that's why I agree with her when she says that the advocacy has to go everywhere, and everybody needs to understand that she's not less of a human being as the man, and she has feelings as much as the man does, and she has rights to, because I don't know how often wives rape their husbands. But they have feelings too.
I mean, I'm sure. Yes, I guess. It probably happens. Just like when it comes to.
So that one is quite dicey, because you know how women. There are times when you ask women if you want to have sex with your husband and you're touching him
and he says no, and she goes to sleep.
No, lots of women are like, what does that mean? Now, okay, in today's world, people are changing. But there was a time when they would say, no, you remove the trouser. Women actually feel, yes, a lot of women, if we're being honest, I'm always on the side of women, but on an honest one, I always say consent is for both sides.
Right.
If your husband says he's tired, he's tired. If he says no, so it's not even a matter of, I hate when they say, I hate when they try to humanize us as women and say, you have as much rights. It makes us seem like we're already less, and we're trying to climb on to tell you.
So compensating us for something.
I don't care if I'm your wife. I'm not your property. In Nigeria, we really feel like a girl is from the property of our father, the property of our husband. It's like, nah, we are two adults. If I say I don't want. I don't have to ask for permission. I don't have to tell you, please, I don't want to have sex today. No, it's like, no is no. If I say yes tomorrow, cool, we can discuss it. I can tell you I'm tired or I'm this. In fact, sometimes you really don't have to explain when it comes to, consent. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you're in a marriage, then if I don't have sex for 3 weeks, at some point, you guys can try to work it out. So like, okay, maybe this is the but in general one. If somebody says no matter what relationship you have with her, and I like that, you see it in interactions. Next thing, even though sometimes you see men trying to mock you, saying stuff like, okay, should I not touch you before consent? At least now you know that consent exists. There was a time when men would just grab your laps and you don't think anything is wrong. So honestly, we just need to keep pushing the word.
So, let's leave now that you ended that. So now I was actually going to ask you, because I know that you do interact with a lot of young people, because of this the gens, and everybody else, all sort of gens from Gen C to Gen X.
Sex work, it's not even just the Gen Z.
Right.
It's also
everybody. Yes.
Everybody.
It affects all of us.
Yeah.
Now, what is your impression about the young ones, about the younger ones? What is when you talk to them, what do you feel when you talk to them about it, and even about just the laws and bodily autonomy? Like what do you get? What impression do you have?
I love the upcoming generation. I love us. I love me. I say I'm smacking the middle. I'm a zillennial.
Right.
Some days I can give them Gen Z.
Yes.
But I'm very proud of this generation, because I think that a lot of people, they come to me. So I have a sex podcast, and it's a very very open space.
Okay.
Space as well.
Oh wow.
Yes. So, we talk about sex, and obviously I have a lot of people in my DMs, and people also, the thing is, once people see you at their safe space, they come and tell you what is going on in their lives. And at the end of the day, I say I'm like the cool cousin you can't talk, because a lot of people are not going to talk to their sisters, they're going to talk to their brothers. I like that even the men, they're being more open-minded, they're being conscious about these things. But then also, I also recognize that my demographic is skewed. People can come online. There has to be work that is done in the villages.
Right.
Because those are the places where those cultural norms are still being enforced and stuff. But then, the power of TikTok, power of Instagram, you see how things spread. It's really about pushing the right messaging. Unfortunately, being on social media, people all almost they even shadow ban sex education content.
Right.
You know, once you see how people sometimes they're creative, they write S3X.
No,
you know,
in
or
every
SDGs.
word, in every word, there's.
I'm like me on my podcast.
You're bleeping yourself. You're bleeping yourself. Yeah.
It is sex. There's no sex. It's no citric. It is sex. You know, it's not a taboo. So I think that people just need to be more bold. You just need to talk about these things more because it's a normal biological function. I think that the younger people, they're learning. They're being more conscious. Really, the ones who can go online. We just have to keep fighting the likes of amputees and all those misogynistic men that come on to push this, because sometimes it feels like the world is regressing. But I think that I'm hopeful for the new generation. I think that people, they are more open to learning.
And they want to know more.
They want to know more.
They're a bit more curious than we were.
Exactly. And they're more bold.
Yes, they're more bold, more curious, more forthcoming.
Even some of the guests on my podcast, they were younger than me, and they came and spoke about these things openly. And so I'm very proud, that I think that I may not grow to see the ideal sexually well society that I want to see in my time. But I feel like we're going in the right steps in some way. Even though some people are trying to take us back with the whole Roe versus Wade, but keep fighting basically.
So I've met women and girls, and I think it's almost like because the women don't know, the girls won't know. Their daughters won't know because they don't know. They don't even know how this body works.
Yeah.
How this thing called the female, as somebody called it, agency. How does it work? Someone said you have to know. You have to be in charge of it. They're saying you're in charge of your agency. They don't even know how it works.
I get where you're coming from. That's where the concept of age-appropriate sex education comes in. Because sometimes a girl doesn't even know what menstruation is until the day she sees the blood.
Right.
And on that day she's told that once a man touches you, you get pregnant. And we find out that in the end, and that's why I like where she came from, these young people are so aware. Most of the time when I go out to speak, you find out that when you go, because sex education is age appropriate, when you talk to some set of people, you're talking about things like, menstrual hygiene, you're talking about things like abstinence, self-esteem. But when you say all your abstinence just from now to tomorrow, and you say, okay, so any questions, they will get to ask you about sex. So you find out that they know these things.
They are hearing it from other sources.
Exactly, and that's where the challenge is, because I tell parents every time I get the opportunity to speak to them that teach your children sex or they will learn it anyway. But the problem is that they don't learn it from you. They will learn from it. They will on all for experience, and then it will not be a bad. It will not be a bad situation. And it still boils down to, in the end, as parents, of course, as a parent, you want your children to imbibe certain ideals, which is fine. You want them to probably grow up with your own beliefs and your values. And I tell people that is even the more reason why you should be the one to teach them sex, because if you teach them, you can do some sprinkle of your religious beliefs, some sprinkle of your moral beliefs. But if they hear everything from outside, and then most of the time, because children believe you when they listen to you, and then when they go out and hear some truths, they find out that you lied to them, and then they no longer want to hear from you. And that's why you find out that children really do not know, or the parents don't even know what is going on in their children's life, because they are not the ones speaking to them. And once you don't bring up these conversations, you won't get feedback from them. You don't know what's going on in their head. And so, yes, I agree that a lot of women do not know at this point, but that's why we keep, enforcing and, advocating and, teaching that just teach these children sex. If you need to, go ahead and buy books, sex education for dummies, all these things exist, so that you can know where to come in, what to teach them at certain ages, know when to teach them what to call them, let them call it by its name, not Jerusalem or
because
Lord of Moses,
I was like, no. Just call it the vulva, call it vagina, just say it.
Some of us we're used to nicknames, because you can't. You have to be PC, especially in this space and time. When you're talking about certain things that are intimate, you can't say some words. On this show, we can say, we had episodes where somebody said, can I say the P word? I said, you mean oh yeah, we can talk about.
I'm very out there.
Sadly, that's why we have so many misconceptions flying around. So I hear certain things from people. Some people will tell me like, oh, contraceptive causes cancer, and I'll ask them, so how many people do you know
have gotten cancer from contraceptives?
And in Nigeria we like bad news now. Bad news always makes the
negative first.
It's not bad, it's not even news in the first place. So, and that's why we keep saying, keep keep learning and keep teaching, because that's the only way to know in the end.
In certain circles where even periods are met with the talk about periods and is met with such distaste and such like disgust,
Isolation.
like
You're not allowed to go into the kitchen. Even some churches will say,
I know some religions you are clean and it's fine. Yeah, you can't do certain things when you are on your period. It's in some religious spaces. But even just the basic, how do I care for myself at this time of the month? What will my body, what is my body possibly going through at this time of the month? There are ways, even the emotional, like the mood swings. People don't know that I'm crazy. They don't know about that.
For no reason.
Growing up, I never experienced PMS. Ever. I never experienced pain. How did I know my period was coming? Because I would just see it. That's how I would know. So I never had like a cramp and I say, oh, it's something. And I used to, because I give everything in my life nicknames. So I used to, the Red Dragon, Peggy's visiting.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I always used to say, because when it's talking to children, I'm like, Peggy's visiting. That's what I call her. She's coming. She comes every month and she stays for like 4 or 5 days. You know what I mean? But I never do any of these things. And I think even when I was in secondary school, in boarding school, we used to talk about it because they even taught us how don't wash your underwear with hot water, use cold water because it'll wash off easier. So all these kind of things, little things like this, and you know what I mean? But now I don't necessarily know if I see people. I think it's because a lot of our generation and the children that are coming have learned from social media what to do. So
you'd be surprised that many of them haven't, to be honest. And so, for example, whenever I have an opportunity to talk to, like I said, sex education is age appropriate. So when I teach menstrual hygiene, I teach with board
and right, and jot
whatever they have there. So I draw the female reproductive organ. So and many of them, they're in school, they don't even know this. What's this? They don't know what the ovaries. They don't know what.
Meanwhile, we drew it in school, in secondary school as an example. We drew it.
So I draw it and I explain to them. So this is what is happening. The eggs are coming from wherever they are coming from. They get here. The sperm is supposed to come from the outside and go through your vagina and go ahead to fertilize it. If it doesn't happen, the eggshells, along with every other thing that has been building up, preparing for the baby. I explain. I go to details with them, and also I show them how eventually everything sheds and comes down as the period. So I think that's how far parents need to go, and that's why I say that parenting is not a joke. It's something that, as much as you want to do it, you should understand that there are a lot of things you have to learn along the way if you want to live to your name as a parent. So it's all about being able to actually break it down, and because these children are so curious. They are really curious. So you have to be able to explain to them. Otherwise, they will still ask you why. If you are not able to, they will go elsewhere and learn it.
And experience with the best teacher, which is not always the best thing. So now we're talking about that, families and guardianship and their role in this dissemination of information, the spread of information to these young people and teaching them about this thing. I want you to I'm going to have you, because this is where you came to us, so we're not going back to you. So let's talk about that and their role, and then we'll have you touch on that a little bit as well.
Teaching sex, I don't think, when you say family, it shouldn't be the job of the family, it's the job of the parents.
The parent/guardian, right? Whoever the primary caregivers are.
It has to come from the primary caregiver, because, according to statistics, majority of the sexual assault cases, rape cases are, they are done by perpetrators. They are done by people that are close family members. Majority of the rape cases that we see are perpetrated by and that is why nobody should have that sex conversation with your child, or with your word, however the case may be. You should be the one having it. And then that's also why we need to, encourage children to speak up when they go somewhere and they come back. Oh, they went to greet one uncle, or they went to some cousins. When they come back, so what do people talk about? And then, when they say all the things that they talked about, you can put things in perspective. So in the end, I think it's mostly the role of the parents or guardian, and not necessarily the extended family. It takes a village to raise a child.
But let's start with the charity begins at home.
Exactly.
Home is where we start before we go to the village. Let's
do
start
it
in the house.
yourself, yeah.
So, but at what age, Leema, I'm going to ask you this. What age do you think is a good time to start having these kind of conversations? People's choices vary about where to start.
As she has said, rightfully said, and I love that, age-appropriate sex education.
Right.
From when your child can speak, they should be able to name their body parts. Oh, this is Peggy. No. Vagina, because no shade. The child knows
The red dragon.
This is a penis, this is a this. Your child can come back and say, Uncle XYZ put his penis in my vagina.
Absolutely.
It's not,
And that's the
he did
reason
this,
why
he
they
did this,
must
or he did
learn
this.
that.
There's no, there's no ambiguity as to what happened. So it's like she says, I'm not going to tell a 5-year-old about the nitty-gritty of getting an IUD or getting depot shot. But you would know about, okay, don't let anybody touch this.
Right.
If anybody does that, when my child is from 9 or whatever, I'm like, okay, this is the age where periods start to come. I start to tell you, okay, this is how to wear pad, this is this, this is that. Even so, when I started my period, I was in one of my auntie's house, and she just gave me a mini talk. But I know that my first few periods, I used to struggle with the placement of, when you wear pad and used to shoot because nobody said, oh yeah, bring your. I wasn't at home, so it was later on that someone was like, but how come you're not saying? I was like, I started when I was on holiday and everything. So and I did, but by that time obviously I'm also somebody who is curious and stuff. But you have I had friends who have told me that when they started their period, they didn't even want to tell their parents. They hid and they were just covering themselves and doing all of those things. And it's like we need to normalize these things, and not just for kids, because adults also need sexual education. You have mothers who didn't go through sexual education, so to them, they want to repeat what their grandmothers told them. Even men need the sexual education, because when they shave, girls, if I get stained in front of girls, I won't really. But women are more likely to be like, there's a man around. Where's the scarf? With me, I carry my tampon like a cigarette to the back. Yes, I'm bleeding. What are you supposed to do? I'm very bold with it. You have to normalize this. It is just blood that's coming out of my body. Unfortunately, like if we bring 100 women here, like 60 of them coming menstruating now. It's just so normal. It happens every day. Why are we hiding? Why is there shame? If I get stained, okay, I got stained. I clean up and I move on. So everyone needs to have that sexual education. Even with we always laugh at men and say they don't know where the clit is. There's so many women who they don't even know there's a difference between urethra and your vagina hole. They don't even know that the urethra and the clit are different. They don't even know where the period is coming out. They think they pee from the same place.
Absolutely.
And the thing she said about, I love that you said you draw all of these things and you say, okay, why blood is coming out is that your uterus is shedding. Because even with contraception, and a lot of people love to share that post of, hey, hormones, I don't want hormones. You don't even know. I had to correct somebody she's a well-known person who's 40-something years old. She said, oh, if you use contraception, it's as good as doing an abortion. It's like, but you don't even know what it does. You have to know, this is where know your body comes in. You need to know that your body releases eggs. You need to know that, okay, some contraceptives, what they do is they change your cervical mucus, they make it hostile for the sperm. Some of them, they just stop the egg from coming out. They're not killing anything. And then obviously, when you have emergency contraception, even emergency contraception is just making that place hostile. It's just to make sure that, if that sperm should come, God, it's not going upstairs. Simple, but
it's
obviously,
not going upstairs. You see, she said upstairs. You see, Leema now used a term. You see, after I start feeling bad.
No, this is to make people relate. Do you understand?
It's like, sense.
Yeah, it's those kind of things. It's like, so you have to be curious as a person yourself. You have to understand. Don't let someone tell you this is bad. Okay, why is it bad? What does it do? You have to get to the thing. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a medical professional. Yes, you should speak to professionals, but you should also have that interest and be interested in what is happening with your own body. I will check everything I will do before the doctor even says me. I will be arguing it's a lie. I think this is a lie. Because a lot of even men, I always argue with male doctors. A male doctor say, and why don't you use this one? Like, you've never had cramps in your life. You don't know. I'm telling you that these cramps are cooking my bum. They're telling me, no, just go. It's stop it. These kind of things. So even men need that sexual education.
Yeah.
Like, sex education is for everyone. But like she said, age appropriate. In this country. But even some marriage, I've helped married women go through sexual challenges and because I'm very vocal about sex toys, all of those kind of things. So everyone needs sex education. You just need to localize it and don't allow your beliefs or your husband. If you say age appropriate now, someone will say, okay, maybe I'll tell you about contraception when you're 35. Even that they call it family planning, it's like, no. once you're sexually active, you can get pregnant. You should have access to these things.
But I mean, like, we talk about family planning and the need for it because it's also a form of education. It's being able to be told, to be told and to know that, oh, I can choose that. It's every 2 years. I would rather have a child as opposed to every year, or I don't want at all right now, or when I don't even want.
When a single person just comes to the hospital, every time I see family planning clinic in our hospital, I just look at it like,
okay.
because honestly,
it makes you feel like
they're spying on the ring. So I don't mind. What's she doing here? That kind of thing.
Right.
And I feel like I wanted to chip in and add to what she said, that one of the major reasons why you should also use the names of these organs with your children, even if you both have the slogan for the organs.
Yes.
And they can come and tell you, okay, brother.
Yeah, they can say, brother, put Larry in my Jerry. Yeah,
so they can tell you that he entered my Jerusalem. But the challenge is that what if it's a case where there has to be a prosecution? God forbid. I tell people that emergencies can happen to anybody. I've seen pastors on the ward on admission. They did not offend God. So these things do not necessarily, it's not a matter of God forbid. Anything can happen to your child. So what if there's a need to prosecute? So you take your child to the police station and the child is telling the police officer he entered my Jerusalem. There's no evidence.
So what if they even want to report to a teacher and the teacher just brushes
that's
aside
one of the reasons why
they
exactly, because most of these words, these slangs are, my own friend called breast poyoyo. Have you heard that before? So they are like
cleaning, so you see.
I call these the twins, Molly and Polly. I say Molly and Polly. So if I took my child to school, I was saying, listen, teacher, this is what I told my child to call these places.
And so they have to cram that of 40 children. Yeah. So they are so customized and personalized that you just have to
just know what it is. It's not a bad way, it's vagina. If you can say like,
that's like I say nose.
No, I don't want to be like I just use slang words when my children are grown. No, I use slang words when they are younger. For the children in my life, at least.
People infantilize children too much. Children are so smart.
They are, I know. But I can't tell my 6-year-old to be saying,
they go to school where their friend is even saying pussy. I just
she
just said it.
I don't want to where did you hear that?
What? She just
because you can't isolate. You can't homeschool your child forever. You can't isolate them. They eventually go out and mix with society.
But I feel like I don't want to also I feel like sometimes I don't want to scare them too much. I don't have children, but children in my life that I have nieces and nephews, and I have my friends' children who are my children.
Scared one.
No. What I'm saying is, I think you get to a certain age, like in school, because when we were in school, at the young age we were in school, we learned about reproduction. We learned how periods happen, and we started
as someone
saying
that
those things.
teaches or advocates for parents teaching their children sex education, I know that it can be hard. You know how I know? When it was time to have that conversation with my younger sister, it was hard. And that's what I feel like it's no. So you go out
as a professional, yes. So you cannot do your house.
And I empathize with parents when they struggle with it, because I know it's definitely not easy. But you just need to understand that
just push past
because of the times that we are in, these things are so rampant. You see, I read cases every day and I'm angry. You see children, they say, oh, it's because of what she was wearing. So what was the baby wearing? These things happen to children every day, and this is why we need to put aside our struggles and and just do what we have to do.
I think at the end of the day, like you said, it's about even education, even for some of us who are making these things. So it's about education. Wow, this. No. I'm just saying. No, maybe once again, you have to remember, I'm also a comedian. So I sort of I like to make light of stuff. So in my mind, I've sort of over the years have tried to make light of everything. So as a young child, I'd rather call a body part a name, and then as you get older, we will eventually learn that, because it was for me. I'm looking at myself when I was younger, I used to call the male part this and the girl part that. But as I grew older and I entered school and I said, oh, it's actually a penis or a vagina. So it was
but even some grown-ups till now, when I mention body parts around some grown-ups, they still look at me.
No, I still call it. My body parts for me have different names. I call them different names. It's how I'm feeling that day.
With your friends, but everybody has this slang, like you say, you do this, we make all the gestures. but you should also have that serious side where it's like,
Yes, there has to be a serious time.
Especially
Yes.
when it comes to the children.
And especially when it comes even with children, with education, with regard to just even warning your children about abuse and the possibilities of, and just warning them so that, like you said, when it comes to a legal aspect, a child should be able to say to an officer, a police officer, that his penis entered my, or his finger entered, whatever it is, depending on what kind of, like, I'm even talking about that. Now it's making me feel some type of way.
You know,
But,
I think the best way to approach conversations around sex with children is not necessarily to make it look like, oh, okay, come and sit down. And you know,
Yeah, it's not a meeting. It's not a conference. Yeah.
When conversations happen.
And there are so many ways now. There are ways that people are using objects to think that you're watching film.
Everything around you.
So, yeah.
And it makes it easier, trust me.
It's about education. And I think, once again, this is all about just us getting to know that, I'm not going to call it agency anymore, having the power over your body, having the power over your sexual and reproductive parts. We know what those are. I'm not going to call them. Leema, don't look at me funny. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. No, that place. Upstairs. As you said. Ladies, this has been an amazing episode. Such an amazing time. I've learned so much. I've learned so much. I've heard so much. I'm gonna unhear some, but I've learned so much for the meantime. But I'm so grateful that you guys have come. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming to share your time with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And that's our show for today. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our principal partners, Worthy. We want to say a huge thank you for this beautiful space, the Herbert Wigway Foundation. Thank you so much. And of course, Hasty Health Initiative. Thank you so much, everyone. And until next time, take care of yourselves and be safe.